Welcome to the latest transmission of Rice Against the Grain. Today I am joined by returning guest Lewis Herms. He is the founder of Screw Big Gove, Freedom in Action, and the Truth Tour. I will have a link down below in the video description and above for his first appearance, and as always I encourage you to check that one out. Before we get into it, make sure you visit ricetvx.com and sign up for my mailing list so you never miss an update or new Rice TVX and Rice Against the Grain content. You will also find links to all of my various channels as well as my social media. Make sure you're following both of my YouTube channels, Rice TVX as well as Rice Against the Grain. And due to censorship, make sure you follow me on other alternative platforms such as Rumble and Odyssey, where I do post up exclusive content. Also, another way that you can support the channel and get a free half ounce of silver is via my partnership with Money Metals Exchange. Visit moneymetals.com, be a first-time buyer, purchase a minimum of $100 worth of goods, use the promo code RICETVX at checkout. You get a free half ounce of silver and it supports Rice TVX and Rice Against the Grain. I will include links in the video description for everything I just mentioned as well as everything shared on today's video. All right, joining me on today's show is a returning guest. I am joined by Lewis Herms. He is the founder of Screw Big Gove, also Freedom in Action, and most might know of him from the Truth Tour. Lewis, welcome back to the show. How's it going, my friend?
Amazing. I finally feel rested up from the last Truth Tour. I'm doing a lot, working on a lot of things, and thrilled to be here, to be honest with you. It's been a while.
It has. It was actually, I was looking back, it was the 1st of September of 2022 that we had the conversation the last time. So like I was telling you before we started, man, I completely apologize for one, not being in touch. I mean, I know you've been busy. I know you've had Truth Tours going on, and then I was supposed to attend a couple. So I just wanted to apologize to you and anybody else who might have been looking forward to seeing me at any of those events. But I am potentially going to be appearing in March in Florida, but we'll kind of get to that as we talk about the Truth Tour a little bit more specifically. But I will have links down below for everything that we're going to be talking about. And then the other thing I would encourage people is when I originally interviewed Lewis, it was for Stranger Than Fiction and on Rice TVX. And since then, I've removed all my Stranger Than Fiction content off of Rice TVX. I've started a new channel for that kind of content, which is Rice Against the Grain. So I would encourage people to make sure that you're subscribed to this channel, Rice Against the Grain, on YouTube, my second channel, and you will find a link also in a video description for Lewis's first appearance, which is a repost on Rice Against the Grain. So that way we don't have to rehash too much. So if you want to learn more about who Lewis is, learn more about the basis of the Truth Tour and what he's been doing with Screw Big Gove and Freedom in Action, definitely check out that first conversation. But I wanted to kind of catch up with you, man. What's been going on with you? It's like when I talked to you, you guys were going to be doing Truth Tour 2.
Mm-hmm.
What's been going on since, and that was before it started. So what's been going on since Truth Tour 2?
Yeah, so we had Truth Tour 2 was super successful. We did, I don't know, like 25 cities in a month. It was crazy, literally all around the United States. Ended up in Anaheim, and it was really weird. I actually felt, many of us did, like we were in the middle of a real Harry Potter movie because we had Russell J. Gould appear.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't know if it was his minions or who. All I know is we counted 12. Some people are saying 13, which would make sense. Actual witches. I mean, Chris, real witches. If they formed a pentagram in the audience and were literally incanting during our event. It was like,
but that wasn't associated with Russell.
Well, it turns out a lot of them knew Russell, and I actually think a lot of them were. I know they were plants. I can tell you that.
Okay.
So there could be a connection, right? And you and I are very pragmatic. So if I don't find the connection, I'm not going to say there is. But it was a coinkydink, to be at the least. but it was very interesting because they were literally incanting, and you could see them. They were in form in a pentagram in our audience, and we're like, so we were stopping them, and it was fun. And we had some spiritualists there, so we had our spiritualist in the back fighting them.
Oh, like a battle of light versus
Dude,
darkness.
It was crazy, and it
Now
actually
I get to Harry Potter. Was there wands being thrown out?
Yeah, I don't know. There were almost fists being thrown.
The Russell thing was interesting, and one, you did text me because you knew my history with Russell, and you
Right.
asked if I had some questions. I liked the way you handled it. Russell tried to turn it around on his end and make it look like it was a win, but it was like it was a disastrous train wreck. And again, I wouldn't have invited Russell J. Gould, but I get why you did, and that's one of the reasons why I appreciate you, Lewis.
Yeah, I don't run from it, and I'll give everybody a platform for a minute until they do something stupid, and I felt something stupid was done there, so I had to call it out.
Well, he was saying a lot of rude things.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very, very egotistical individual, and it's like even if he had done any of the things that he claims that he might have done, it's like you really don't want someone like that being in charge.
Well, and here's where it came down to. So during this thing is, first he came in what I consider kind of a war gear. He was wearing a bandana, very, very aggressive shirt, and it felt like an act to me. And then I would notice his security guards, no disrespect to them because they're ex-mil, right? But everything that he was saying, they're nodding their head. And to me, it felt like I was watching an MK Ultra session. Literally, they were trying to get the audience to buy in because they were up front on the side, so the audience could see them prevalent doing that. So I had a little challenge with that. And then the way he was talk is that he walks into a room and Secret Service bow down to him. Military people do the same thing, so on and so forth. And he's in control. So I had a serious question. Yeah, there you can see the gear right there.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, man. I really, 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 really wish I would have been at this particular event, but I guess things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, it's an experience never to be forgotten. I'll tell you that. So then what happened is I wanted to ask him some serious questions, and I just said, Russell, if you are who you say you are, okay, it's very impressive, great. But if you are who you say you are, let me ask you this: why is there still people pouring across the border with children? Why is there human trafficking going on? Why is there drug trafficking going on? If he goes, well, and then here's where he really got me is he said somewhere in there, he goes, well, we're writing stuff up right now to take care of that. And I said, well, supposedly you captured the flag a long time ago, and now you're just going to write stuff up and suddenly everybody's going to listen. And that's when I said, I just call BS. I go, if you're the commander in chief, where's the teeth? And I said, this is where I have a problem. And, it was just a very pragmatic conversation, but then it got escalated. And then his
I call it cult. But you could be nicer than me, but they drank some kind of Kool-Aid.
Well, yeah, they did for sure. And what happened is his military people stepped towards me aggressively. And then that's when I went off because I wasn't going to put up with that.
And I respect
it. Is what it is. And it's not about me, and it's not an ego thing. I did the same thing when I saw Wendy Rogers do something at one of our events. I called her out on it because it's just, you and I are kind of cut from the same cloth. It's about we the people, and I don't want all this theater, right? It's not necessary. Let's just tell us the truth.
Well, that was my biggest concern with you kind of having an open forum and allowing for kind of like anybody in the community to be a part because I knew the kind of drama. I just knew the drama, even just on the law side, from me trying to gather. Because what I was at one point, I had the asinine idea. It sounded great in theory, but the actual trying to make it a reality was the most disastrous thing anybody could potentially imagine, was thinking that all these different groups and teachers, gurus, or whatever you want to call them, had a piece of the puzzle. They didn't have the puzzle, but they had a piece.
Right.
Or maybe a couple pieces. And if you could have all of these individuals come together, maybe we could put the puzzle together. But ego, a lot of these people had worked together in the past and it stopped working together. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that kind of came into play. Some people don't want to admit when they're wrong, can't be open to accepting new information that may challenge what you think you know. So that was one of the reasons why I was really skeptical. But again, I commend you on what you were doing. And I know a lot has kind of evolved and shifted and changed. So you've done 3 complete truth tours now.
Yeah.
And then on the road to getting ready to do this Florida event.
Yeah, the Florida event will be more of a quick one. So we're going to do 7 stops, I think, in 8 days. So the first 6, we're going to go all the way around Florida, but the first 6 will be more or less workshops. We'll probably have 2 or 3 known speakers there. I mean, like high caliber things, teaching. We're having some of the names I can't name yet, but they're going to be very, very good teachers that actually teach you how to help take back your community. Because the key for us, and I figured this out, is it is up to we the people. So in what we have to do is we need to act. So how do we do that? So what happened is on Truth Tour 2, it got high ratings by the guests, but there was always seems to be one question, and that question was, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? So that's when we took a few months and we really started to study, how are you successful within a school board? How are you successful talking to your sheriffs? How do you get the right people in office? How do you really track your elections and make sure you can prevent fraud? How do you work with, how do you actually do a boycott successfully? And then a lot of things I was teaching are about the shills to watch for. So an example I would often use is Sean Hannity. So Sean Hannity is the epitome of controlled opposition, and it really upsets people when I say that, but I don't really give a shit. But what happens is Hannity will be the first one to say it's disrespectful to protest, right? It's beneath you to go boycott. Don't boycott, because if they're done right, they're extraordinarily effective. So what we are doing is now we've decided is we're taking the Marxist playbook and we're eliminating the violence and we're eliminating the vandalism, and we're finding out it's extraordinarily successful. But you'll get these controlled op people that will push back on that, because the last thing they want you to do is be effective. They want you just to live in fear and contain you. That's market share is what controlled opposition does.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more controlled opposition than people realize. I mean, if you're good at doing what you do, you wouldn't know that they were doing it. And even I've even kind of said that about Alex Jones, that I feel like he's controlled opposition.
Yeah, I would agree. In fact, based on your channel, I'm not going to name it, but it has something hook in it. And the reality is, he kept saying he's got the evidence, he's got the evidence, he's got the evidence, right?
Yeah.
But when it came time to present the evidence, he didn't present it. And that's because as controlled opposition, he needed to fail at the last second, because then that wipes away the so-called conspiracy of /hook.
Right. And then it also it downplays everything that he has said in the past. It also kind of downplays a lot of his guests and then people who would be kind of lumped into that kind of niche.
Yep. It's a complete setup is what it was. So I still feel like he's controlled op. I do feel there's an element that has been talked to because I'm watching him be more consistent and not as controlled op-ish, I guess you can say. So I am one of those guys that I do think there are white hats working in the background, but definitely not as fast and as effective as some people would pretend they are.
No, I mean, I think there's probably elements of bureaucracy even in that.
Yeah, it would make sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's got to go through a lot of different channels to make sure it's good to go. So with this next leg that you're doing in Florida, you said the first 5 or 6, which would be the Fort Myers through Gainesville, would be more of workshops, and then the last event is that's going to be March 31st. That's the
that's New Year's Eve.
That's the blowout. Can you? I've heard things to this effect. March being, well, that would make April the beginning of the year.
Right.
But where does this come from?
All right. So,
because I know we used to do. I know. And I'm sorry to interrupt. I know we used to do the inauguration and stuff like that in March, and that was changed in 1930s to Monday, or excuse me, to January. I don't know why I said Monday, but.
So a couple of things, and here's where it came from. We have to realize that we know, most people watching your channel know that we've been manipulated to the highest possible level imaginable, that virtually everything is a lie. And just about everything the cabal has done is to take us out of what I call our rhythm, where we should be. They don't want us thinking straight. They don't want us, our brains clean. They want it as foggy as possible. So one of the ways I believe they've done that is I think they may even taken 1,000 years out of time, but put that aside.
I've heard that, and then I'm gonna write a note about that because that's a really interesting rabbit hole.
Yeah, it is. So put that one aside for a second, though. It's if we go back in history, we used to work on a 13-month calendar 6,000 years ago. And the major, like the Mayans, even in, I believe, a part in China and other, and in some place pre-Europe, let's call it pre-European. But it's very interesting. So they actually worked on a 13-month calendar, and the way it was based on, and it really makes a lot of sense if we think about it. Let's go to a woman's cycle. A woman's cycle is 28 days, right? That's very natural. If you take a woman's cycle of 28 days and you divide it backwards into 365, it gives you 13 months and 1 extra day. And the more that we study this, it becomes very evident that they screwed with us. So if you look at the actual names of the months, right? So you go to August, I believe Aug is 6, Sept is 7. We know October, Oct is 8. November is 9. You just look in Latin, Novem is 9. And everybody knows December would be 10. So clearly they made an adjustment of 2 months right there.
But wouldn't that make the end of the new year the end of February and the beginning
of
March 1st?
But they removed a month.
Okay.
This is where you go to, now you have to add a month in, right? And so our friend Ethan completely agrees with me, but he thinks it may be on the solstice or like a week before when I'm saying the New Year's is.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I believe we have 28 days, which is 13 months, and that one day, that extra day, is what I call the day of renewal, right? And that's the transition where it's literally a day out of time. And think about it, April Fools. We were told it's April Fools because they're fucking with us, and they're always messing with us. So in my calculations, it comes to right at the end of March. Now it really makes sense, because if you think of it, why would you have your new year in the dead of winter? A new year
Right.
is new beginnings. That's when spring, that's when you should see flowers and beautiful smells. And it's like life is
You
coming.
would think the new year would start in spring.
You would, right? But they've clearly messed with it. And if take away the whole 13 months, take away everything, and just look at that from August to December, clearly those numbers are off by 2 months. And that's undisputable in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've been lied to about our calendar. I'm not even sure the continents or what they were called back, centuries, even hundreds of years ago. Who the hell knows? There's a lot of theories about. I've had this guy from a channel called Old World Florida about Florida being where Atlanta's Garden of Eden, basically being the same thing, were located.
Heard that, yeah.
The United States, like basically prior to the flood, prior to the Noah story, and also there's a right in the, I'm not sure if you would call this the Panhandle, but the northwestern part of Florida, there's gopher, there's what we would call gopherwood, like forest of gopherwood. I think it's one of the only places on the planet that it actually grows. And then we have the Fertile Crescent, where the Gulf is, the Gulf of Mexico, in that theory. So, I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised. And then I've interviewed Jason Brashears from Archaics, and one of the things he talks about is the calendar being changed and having 5 days added to it, which are called useless days by some cultures. So there's a lot of really interesting things when it comes to our calendar. I mean, we've been, who knows? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes it feels like such a losing battle to try to figure out the past that we can learn from, because it's so distorted. I can't even 100% say that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were actual, real people. I can't say that.
I can't even say they're alive. But I'm glad you said this,
because the story of the founding fathers could be made up bullshit. I don't know.
Well, this is segues perfect on why we're doing the Truth Tour, the workshops, the Freedom in Action. Because here's what the people need to realize. Right now, we have a malleable putty of clay or bulk of clay in our hands, and we have the opportunity to make it exactly the way we want it. So I have decided that we're going to have New Year's Eve on March 31st, because guess what? We, the people, can do whatever the fuck we want.
Now, St. Petersburg is also where there's, I think it's St. Petersburg, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's Tampa. There's this, because a guy from Old World Florida, the YouTube channel, interviewed this guy named John Saxer, I believe. And there's these things called the Saxer stones. They're giant, like, anchor stones. That's kind of where the Atlantis stuff kind of came from. These are huge stones with like these holes bored through them where you could tie rope and anchor ships down. So it's not too far from St. Petersburg. And so it's interesting that you chose the real Garden of Eden and Atlantis for the Truth Tour. For, I don't know, is this Truth Tour 4 or is this just the Florida edition?
It could be called Truth Tour 4. Chris, I honestly, I haven't chosen anything in 3 years. It all chooses me.
Okay.
And I know it sounds really weird, but I've learned a few years ago, whatever that first thing that pops in your head, that instinct, that voice, whatever you want to call it, I just go with it. And it's been serving me well. So I can't take any credit for it whatsoever. It's interesting though, is I love snorkeling. So I've been looking at the coasts of Florida, like the best places to snorkel. And surprisingly, this may tie into what you're thinking about. Up in the Panhandle in the Northwest, right there, there's an anomaly where all the water around there is okay. It's what it should be based on the climate, but there's this one section that it's always very warm, and it's filled with beautiful tropical fish. Right now, you can say say around the bottom of Florida and around, that all makes sense, right? Because it's a lot warmer, especially in the Gulf of Mexico. But up near the Panhandle, where it's a lot cooler, that little section doesn't make any sense. But it's one of the most prolific snorkeling spots in Florida, which I think is really interesting when you start connecting everything else going on there. There's something going on there that's way over my head. I can tell you that.
Trying to look on a Google map. It's Bristol, Florida, is where they actually claimed the Garden of Eden was at. Now, this isn't something that Old World Florida said. It was just me doing like additional research. Let's see where Bristol's at. I guess it's like somewhere near out. I don't know about this, but they like it borderlines like Alabama, a couple other locations, and apparently there's like a section of like 4 rivers that come together at a head. There's a lot of really interesting things that kind of parallel to this. So zoom out. It's kind of west of Tallahassee is where this Bristol is. But anyways, that's kind of a sidetrack. So what can you tell me about the 7th event taking place for the Truth Tour in Florida, this New Year's Eve blowout on March 31st?
So the 7th event is going to be fun. We'll start the first part of it with like a spiritual session where people can go do yoga, meditation. If they want, there'll be prayer there. They can do that at the beginning, and then we'll go into the event around probably 10 o'clock. And then I'm sure we'll have probably 17 to 20 speakers. Right now, I think we already have 10 signed up. You see 3 of them right there on your screen. If
there's a few more below.
Yep. So you have Michael Jaco, 107.
There's 9 so far that are on here. So I'm going to do my best because you have given me Liana's contact and I haven't talked with her directly, but I do want to talk with her. And I would like to meet Jason.
Brilliant. Yep.
I would like to talk to Jaco, and me and Juan have been talking privately. I haven't talked with them in the past month or so, but it would be cool to catch. Are all these individuals going to be there in real life?
They'll all be in there in real life.
Okay, cool. Are you going to have anybody coming, like calling in on videos? You're going to be all person?
Likely. We usually have 1 or 2 calling in on videos. I know right now, Dr. Frank, who works with Mike Lindell, he's probably going to call into a couple of our events. He's done that before.
Okay.
He's brilliant, by the way. I don't know if you've ever talked to him before.
No, what's his name?
Dr. Frank. He's the one that has Frank TV, and he did the full investigation for Mike Lindell.
Okay.
And that's what exposed the you know what?
Yeah, no, I definitely need to get you to connect me with some of these individuals, and I'll talk with you more privately about that kind of stuff. One thing and I'm going to try my best to figure out, because like I said, I need to go down to Florida in that area, kind of the Fort Myers area. And I'll try to coordinate it where I can come out to the March 31st event, but I will definitely keep you updated. And it's on the website, but there's no information. Do you want to share anything about Hawaii?
Yeah, so Hawaii's going to be fun. Hawaii will be the 28th and 29th. And
of April.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. I've really put my crew through it. They worked their ass off. And if anybody imagines, it's hard to put on 1 event, much less 25 in a month, and traveling all across the country. And
congrats. I mean, like, you got a team working really hard. I know it's just not easy stuff to do. So shout out to your team and yourself for what you guys are doing.
And my wife has been supporting me the last few years like crazy. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but I lost a business that was valued at $2.5 million because of this. So, and my wife continues to do work support when I wasn't bringing any money in whatsoever. And I know her favorite place on earth is Hawaii. She's always wanted to go to Kauai. So I talked to the staff and I go, wouldn't it be great to give them a vacation? And while we're there, let's just do a truth tour, like a really cool one. So we have some amazing speakers going to that. In fact, I just talked to Mark Atwood yesterday. He's going to fly in from Ireland to be there, which is cool. Jason Q will be there. Ethan Lucas will be there. A lot of people. Anyway, so we're going to put on a full day event, 2 days actually there, and we're going to end it with an actual private luau, like major professional luau. Everything you can imagine will be the food will be there, the dancers, the fire guys, you know, that do the fire dancing and all that stuff, the hula dance. It'll be a blast. So it's a gift to all the people that have been working hard in here, and at the same time, you know, people just want to break. So I believe we're probably going to get some attention. That it will be a private event, smaller than other events, but we'll be releasing it probably this weekend on the website.
Information on it.
Yep, full. It'll
Okay.
have all the details. Will be on there.
Cool. Yeah, Ethan, like I said, Ethan was trying to see if I could attend. My birthday is going to be April 29th. So, I mean, I'm going to definitely see what I can work out. I did get really burned out on traveling. And I'm planning on doing some traveling this year. I've got to go to somewhere around that time period, like a little before that. I've got to be in Austin, Texas for a cryptocurrency conference, and then in May for another crypto event in Miami. So, but yeah, I would love to attend the 31st of March and then look into April, but I'll keep you updated on that. Before we started recording, one of the things you were telling me is you kind of, I wouldn't say shift it, but you're starting to focus more on this idea of take back our country one community at a time. You want to expand on that?
So I've my platform is, as you probably know, for all these years has always been about we the people. So I like to constantly pay attention. What are their needs? It's not about what Lewis's needs are. It's not about the truthers, the influencers. It's not about what Trump wants. It's what do we the people want? And they want to be involved. The challenge is unilaterally they've said we just don't have the tools. So what we've been doing is we've been developing all the tools. In fact, they're starting to go up on our website next week and on freedominaction.net. They're all free. So we're going to have a section there that you have the tools, and what these tools will do. It'll specifically say, here's how you go into a school board meeting and you can be extraordinarily effective. Here's the way you conduct yourself. Here's how you organize people to get there. How do you get on the same message? You use the tip of the spear theory instead of spreading out your message. There's a whole bunch of teachings that we've done on Truth Tour 3 that we're actually going to show on here. So now when we do the smaller 3-hour, 4-hour events, probably half of it will be speakers and the other half will be teaching and asking questions on how people can get involved in their community. Because in my opinion, and I don't think I'm on an island here, the way we really take this back is we rebuild our foundation. And if we do that, the cabal loses all control. They get us focusing federal all the time, but the reality is we're not going to have an effect there. But we can have an effect in our community. And when we focus on rebuilding our community and focus on the kids, right, it's extraordinarily effective. And I'll give you an example. So let's say you live in a town with 60,000 people. If 1/10 of 1% stepped up, that's only 60 people. Those 60 people go into a school board meeting at the exact same time with the exact same message, get porn out of our school libraries. Let's say it's just that message. That's it. They win. It's literally that simple. They can't handle the pressure. So the Marxist left always does, this is their game plan. They go in, pinpointed message, one message, they scream and yell, raise as much hell, and then people are intimidated and they make a decision. So there's proof of this. In Orange County, California, during that sickness, right? They wanted to push a passport. And what happened is some friends of mine and a lot of people, you know, including Lee Dundas and a whole bunch of other people, got 2,000 people to one meeting, one board of supervisors meeting when they were gonna vote on this. 1,500 of them signed up to talk. By the time they got to number 750, the board of supervisors called Uncle and said, okay, we're going to table this, meaning they can bring it back anytime. So what they've decided is they said the pressure from we the people was so massive that they have to go back to their controllers and say, we failed. I'm sorry I took your money. we failed. And that's the beauty. When people understand the power of we the people, when they really grasp it, we win. So that's what we're teaching on these over and over and over different things. And here's the really cool part is we have an app that we're going to release coming in the next few weeks. It's in the final testing right now, and it'll be beta testing, I think, in about a week or two. And this app will connect patriots worldwide within their communities. They just put their zip code in, boom, you're connected to any patriot. So can you imagine having millions of people on this app? By the way, it's free. It's not something I'm selling. You got millions of people on this app, and they're like, so-and-so right here, Sheriff so-and-so just made this horrible decision. Great, let's organize. Let's get 500 people over to his office right now. That's effective.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm glad that you said it that way, because I've said a lot that we would have, people would make a lot more of an effect on their local level than they would on a national stage, 100%. And we need to start focusing, because a lot of the changes that take place are on the local level, and people don't realize that. Where the
yep,
because people just don't think that they don't. A lot of people just don't think, and they're also kind of conditioned to not really look at the bigger picture of what's going on and how everything does start on a state and local level. We just not kind of get back to that mindset. And I appreciate you sharing that. It's
well,
really
that's part of the propaganda, Chris. Though they teach us through the news media how important the feds are, right? That's why I no indictment on Trump, but Trump, Biden, all the presidents are on the news every single day, as if the president is the most important in the country. The president is not the most important country. In fact, the most powerful person in the country is your county sheriff. Most people don't even understand that.
I just interviewed Sheriff Richard Mack recently. So,
oh, did you? CSPOA, yes.
Yeah. Have you had him gotten in contact with him for any of the
No, well, I had a conversation with Robert David Steele, and then a quick one with Richard Mack. And honestly, I got busy. I never followed up after Steele passed.
Yeah.
If Steele passed.
I can get you. Yeah. And once a spook, always a spook. But I can get you in contact with Sheriff Mack. And I think that message of your sheriff being your most important individual. I mean, they're the ones who are going to secure your liberties. And I brought up Waco with them and everything. So if people haven't checked that interview out that I did with, dude, I'm telling you what, that video has gotten shit number of views. It's very, very shadow banned. It's like, they don't even want it. They're allowing it to stay up there, but they're just not allowing people to see that it's there.
Yeah, I bet.
And it was one of my more recent ones. And yeah, he's a really cool dude. And I think he's got a lot of things right. And I appreciate, some of the things he's done, because him and a couple other sheriffs went to court that ultimately went to the Supreme Court, where they won, showing where the federal government was violating constitutional rights of people and state rights, by forcing sheriffs to require to do background searches and stuff like that on people.
Well, I want to correct you, because this is important. They're not forcing them, they're mandating them. And the sheriffs are opting to do that because of a false mandate that has no teeth.
Well, a mandate is not law, and we know that.
Right. And that's what the feds have been doing. It's all optics. Everything the feds do is optics. But we live in, we live in a corpocracy. So if the corporations and the local governments don't enforce it, it's moot. The problem is the feds put out this dog whistle, and then the corporations and the local governments do enforce it. And that's why your sheriffs need to just be educated that they have the power. But a lot of them are bought off too. I'm sure Richard would tell you that.
And not educated. Not educated, because he was saying a lot of officers, everybody takes oath to the Constitution, but they're not trained in Constitution. They're trained in basically like statutory law, case law. So it kind of diminishes. And it made me, while I was just talking with you, it made me think of a question that I want to ask him. And that has to do with unincorporated and incorporated areas and how that comes into play. Because I'm sure there's got to be something to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because we know the incorporated areas, there is no due process. They can waive due process if they want. J6 is proof of that, right? So if you're in DC, they just string you along as long as you want. We talk to many people that are still in prison, and they put a court date up, and then it gets pushed off 6 months. It's crazy. It's just crazy. So there's no due process, and these people are not officially in the system, and that's the scary part.
Yeah.
So I've one of the pushbacks when I tell people to get their ass up and protest, right? One of the pushbacks is, wait, look what happened to the J6ers. And I say, well, okay, hold on. You need to look at this.
Only a portion of, because I mean, I attended it and I came out squeaky clean.
Absolutely. So what the first thing I tell them is, I said, it looks like there was 2 million people there, and less than 600 actually got arrested.
Right. It's a very small percentage of people compared.
I said, that is a micro percentage. But what they did is the left used it as a psyop to scare the hell out of you to prevent you from doing that. And a lot of conservatives and a lot of truthers, and I've called them out, have done the same thing. When somebody wants to protest, they're like, wait, you don't want to get arrested. And I say, no, they are doing, if you need to reconsider following that person if they're giving you that message.
But real quick though, had there not been what took place at the Capitol building, there wouldn't have been an issue. If people would have just simply been protesting and not taking it to I hate to even say it, but escalating on some level of destruction and violence.
Well, there's mob mentality there too. So when I was there, as you were, and in the crowd, I was literally pointing out to my wife, that's an infiltrator, that's an infiltrator, that's an infiltrator. And proof of it is since you were there, you know that less than 10% of the people in the general crowd were wearing red hats, because it was so cold. We were covered up. Our ears were covered up. We had beanies on.
Yeah.
But when you saw the film on the news,
beanied up, coated up, it was cold as shit that day.
It was. But when you saw the news media of who was entering the Capitol, more than 50% of them had red hats on. And that tells you exactly what was going on. Those were mainly infiltrators, because they needed you to see that optic. Right now, this is what a lot of patriots don't want to admit. There's also mob mentality. So when the instigators started things up, I guarantee you a lot of good-hearted patriots that were not infiltrators joined in.
Yeah,
but we have to be honest about that. And a lot of patriots get pissed off at me when I say that, but let's just take an honest approach.
That hysteria, you get caught up in it, and you don't think, and you just go with the crowd.
Yep. I saw it firsthand.
It's crazy. I mean, I saw it too. And that was an interesting day, man. That was a very interesting day. Even thinking about it, I mean, like, I don't get as emotional now thinking about it, but for the first few months afterwards, just talking about the patriotism, how much people cared about our country, it was so beautiful. It would bring tears to my eyes. It was just such an awesome experience, and I'm really glad that I participated and got to be a part of it. Well, again, like you said, if we do things right, though, we shouldn't be afraid.
We have nothing to worry about.
Because our right to assemble is a right that's in the Constitution, and people just need to know their rights, and then do their best to try to make sure that we're not having anything escalate to an area that it doesn't need to escalate to.
Well, again, we the people have the control. So let's say we go to a Capitol building with 5,000 people, a local Capitol building, right? And there's one idiot that throws a bottle. Okay,
they're going to call
10 people around him should pin him down, do a citizen's arrest, and bring him right to the cops and say, here's who just did that. It's that easy. And if the infiltrators knew that we weren't going to take that, it would be done. There would never be a violent protest, because we, the people, wouldn't allow it. We would self-police.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. And whenever you get this application that you're talking about complete, let me know. And I still got to, I know I've told you about it, but I've got to connect you with the Freedom Cell people, John Bush and Derek Bros, because this is a way for people to connect as well.
Cool.
Really well thought out way of doing it. So people can check out freedomcells.org. And then another person and thing I want to connect you with is Ammon Bundy. And he came up with People's Rights, which is based on something he calls the NODS system, the Neighborhood Organized Defense System, uniting neighbors to defend their families, faith, freedoms, and future. So it's all parallels with what you're trying to do. And I think that from an agorist perspective of using counter economics and parallel societies and such, we need to be utilizing as many resources as we can. And I would love to see like some sort of, because I'm trying to bring together the people's rights and freedom cells in some capacity, whether it's just making each other's communities aware of the other, because they complement each other. And I'm sure what you're going to be putting together is going to be a complement as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I want to partner with as much as possible. There's no ego attached to this. And if somebody does something a better way or more efficient, let's mold it into what we do instead of running away from it. You know, and it doesn't matter.
And this is like, we must unite with our neighbors, organize ourselves, and prepare for when those that believe they have the right to take control of your property, your children, even your body, come to force their will upon you. When they come, if you are united with your neighbors, you'll be able to stand side by side with each other and say, no way. You'll be able to successfully defend yourself, your family, and your neighbors against those that would forcefully take what does not belong to them. Let's face it, our governmental systems of defense are deteriorating quickly. We must not be left defenseless. And Ammon, Ammon's learned so much, and he's been crucified for the things that he's been doing. He ran for governor of Idaho, ultimately lost, but still took a stand. And that's somebody beautiful. I would love to see be a part of Truth Tour in the future.
I'm in for sure.
Okay, so I pretty much covered most of what I wanted to ask you in regards to catching up and what you're doing with Screw Big Gove, with Freedom in Action, with Truth Tour. And then also remind people to make sure that they're subscribed to the Rumble and YouTube channel. I know you're not updating as much on YouTube, but still I would encourage people to subscribe. So I'll have links for Screw Big Gove Rumble channel down below, as well as Lewis Herms at My Wow Stuff on YouTube.
That's only because they kept taking down all my channels. So that's the only one I got. That's the only one I have left. I never even pushed anything, and it looks like I have 11,000 subscribers. That's funny.
You haven't even checked this out?
I've had it up. I don't do anything with it. I threw an advertisement up there for the Truth Tour, I think, a few months ago. That's it.
Yeah, that was 2 months ago. And then it looks like after that, like 6, 7, 8 months ago. But still, I still would encourage people to subscribe to both. Either way, but you're more active on Rumble.
I'm going to start putting things out there, but what's probably the biggest deal that we're doing is we're working on an incredible, I call it, I guess it's a docudrama on human trafficking that I think will blow the socks off of people. It's getting so dark, so deep with the people that I'm interviewing and we're connecting with. It's sickening, but
you have to keep me up to date on that.
Yeah, well, my goal is to have it out. We're going into editing. I'm hoping at the end of next week, and it'll be out in hopefully about 3 weeks from now.
You want me to post it? I mean, if you're looking for additional places to put it, I can put it on my Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey channels if you want.
Okay, yeah, great. We'll just get it out there. I'll probably put it on it'll replace the one video I have at the top of screwbiggove.com, and it will go on my Rumble channel.
If it's about that, I wouldn't put it on YouTube.
No. Did I say YouTube? I meant
no. You didn't say YouTube. You said
no,
Rumble.
I wouldn't.
Said,
yeah.
I'm just forewarning you just to do that. Okay, yeah. So I've been able to ask most everything I wanted to. I want to get into this missing 1,000 years for a moment, but before we do you have anything that you want to add to this first portion of the conversation?
No, not at all. No.
Okay. This 1,000-year thing, I want to pick your brain on this because you mentioned it. So when I hear about the missing 1,000 years, I hear about it taking place kind of like in what we would consider to be the Dark Age medieval time period. Some point there was 1,000 years wiped away. Now, if this were true, and you're a Christian, right?
Yes.
Where you follow the teachings of Christ.
Yeah.
If you look at things from that viewpoint, and you look at the book of Revelation, then what we would think of as the tribulation, the 7-year time period where the temple's rebuilt, the Antichrist sits on the throne, that kind of stuff, that would have already happened.
Right. Exactly.
And we would be in the tail end of the time period of where Satan is loosed upon the earth. And we're kind of going, if you look at the book of Revelation and you think about the missing 1,000 years and where we could be, it talks about the Gog and Magog stuff comes back and towards the end of Revelation. And that's kind of where we would be approaching. And if you look at what's happening over in Russia and Ukraine, and even some of the talks of what's happening in Israel, a lot of that kind of correlates. Is that what you're kind of getting at, though? Is that
you're way ahead of me, which is fantastic. Yeah, so it definitely feels like that's where we are right now, based on, if you're just going kind of the etherical, oh, this is what feels like it. So from an evidentiary standpoint, I always like to look at markers. So I saw in fact, I posted it somewhere, a really cool video that was talking about a building that was built in the 1800s, right? And when they showed, it was just a regular video showing everything, and they zoomed in on the plaque, and it was 800, not 1800, and it was clear. It was like 895 AD or something like that. And I thought that was very, very interesting. So that means that technology was there. So either the technology has been erased, or they've just lied to us and threw an extra 1,000 years on there. Another thing is, if you look at, there's a lot of coins that I've looked at, and some are falsified and some are real, where it from a distance, it may look like there's a 1, but that 1 is actually
like a marker.
Exactly. And it's not. So that's another 1,000 years. So there's a lot of evidence of that, but there clearly was some type of technology that we had previously. Now, I think a lot of people think it has a mud flood thing, or it was free energy. I think a lot of these places were what I call healing centers, is what it appears to me. And they did it with frequency, because a lot of these old churches had these large pipe organs and so on and so forth. So I think they were probably frequencies, and they were healing centers. They weren't churches. But so if that's the case, again, we've been lied to, and where did that time disappear? So I would be the first to say, I don't know.
Right.
But there's some evidence, and I believe it's going to come out really, really soon, like hard, concrete evidence that there were giants on Earth. And I know that seems,
well, I think it's starting to come out more and
talk.
more. And no, I don't think that's of all the things you talk about, that's probably one of the least crazy things, to be honest with you, because I mean, there is evidence that backs us up. And if you look through historical documentation, they talk about digging up giant bones,
Right.
even red-haired giants, especially in the United States. So
Right.
yeah.
The skull, there's things that say the skull was the size of a man, if that tells you how big those things were.
Well, the thing that I had gathered, and I'm not saying this is true, is that the disciples and people who had learned and been around Jesus were expecting Jesus to return in their lifetime, which may have transpired.
Right.
And then some of this kind of goes into, like, I forget the video I was watching, but there was actually a bishop by the name of Lucifer.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of that before.
And he's actually a saint.
Yep.
And I think this guy wanted to rebuild the temple, and I think something happened. They say something happened when they were trying to rebuild the temple, but it had something to do with Julian the Apostate, and saying that somewhere around this time period may have been where the 1,000 years started getting taken out, or after, I don't know. And then the other theory that some people have even mentioned, which is kind of getting out there but doesn't get too far out there, is that Tartaria, if it existed and there was, let's say, free energy and healing centers and stuff, could have been the kingdom of Christ.
Yeah, I've heard that before too.
And that would, you know, again, put us beyond. It's one of those things I find very fascinating, but again, it's like I can only find things fascinating because I can't. There's no way we could prove any of this stuff, because I don't know how many civilizations existed prior to us. What could have been prior to what we would think of as like from Adam and Eve, because it seemed like there was some sort of destruction that took place for there to be the earth to be repopulated. So I don't know how long there's been species on this planet, and it's just one of those things that I get fascinated talking about it, but it's like, unless Christ comes back and says, look, all this stuff's already transpired, it's all just going to be fascinating to me until I can find more information. Where did you stumble upon that, though?
The 1,000-year one?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't even know what I was studying. And then somebody started sending me pictures of coins. And then that's when I just started to dig into it and looked for a lot of more ancient coins, and noticed that thing that they were said was a 1 was I believe a J in many cases, or an I. And I'm like, well, that's pretty clear. So we've been lied to. And then I hit on this one video that was showing, not modern day, but it was showing like a trolley on a track and people walking through, and it was actual film. And then it got to the plaque of this big, huge building. And then when you zoom in on the plaque and open it up, it was erected like AD, 895 AD or 859, something like, I think it was 895 AD. And I go, whoa, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So again, that was more proof, and it was clear as day. This plaque, not manipulated, old celluloid film, says 895 AD. And I'm like, huh, interesting. And then I just started going down different rabbit holes, and I ended up with, who knows, calendar manipulation and this. And I studied a lot of Tartaria. I'm not all the way on Tartaria because, as you know, in the Patriot movement, we tend to grasp things and go full head on and into them.
To me, that's entertainment.
Exactly. Do I think there is something there? I think there's something there. I'll go.
I mean, half-buried buildings where you can see like there's a lower level below.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's obviously, you got a question. Why would you even build a building like that? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, if you look at a lot of tall, older buildings too, they go to a peak, and there's what looks like a bell housing up there, right? But it doesn't hold a bell. Doesn't. And you know what I believe those are? Because I believe we've had air travel before, and those were just modern day Zeppelins, or not modern day. They were Zeppelins. They would go, they would hook up, get out, and they would go down because there was always a spiral staircase. I've seen them. And
I mean, it could be a way to and not charge, but refuel, because I mean, it takes fire to make those things move.
Absolutely. I don't know, but it was very clear to me those aren't real bell housings, and they'd never have a bell in them. They're always bellless. But but it's very interesting. So I was in Dallas, and we were investigating the JFK shooting, and literally doing some investigation in the area. And I noticed a lot of buildings right on that street and in the area. The entrances are like 16 feet high, and they make zero sense at all. Why? And what happened is they ended up putting a more modern day door that's about 7-8 feet tall in there, but you see the old entrance that they covered up, and they try to make it look like it's artistic. It was a physical door that was 16 feet tall, probably made out of heavy wood. How would a little person open that? Me being 6 feet tall, being a little person,
right?
You just couldn't do it, right?
No,
so that's even it. So they're just questions, and all I would like to do is just people to be really open to this, because something's going on, and we proved it with the calendar. So that's enough to at least open your eyes.
If you haven't heard of the channel Archaics, you definitely need to check it out, and check out the 2 interviews that I did with the Jason Brashears, the host. He has this really interesting idea that we live in a simulated reality, a simulacrum, however you want to pronounce it, and that there are these different events that take place that provide kind of resets. One of them he calls the Phoenix phenomenon. He says takes place, I believe, every 138 years, and like every 6th or 7th one is kind of like a catastrophic event. A lot of the elites apparently would know about this information. The last time this would have taken place would have been 1902. He says that they thought that they got their calculations wrong, and they thought that that was going to be the big one, and they went underground. And then when there was nothing that really took place aside from minor things, they came out from underground, and we had an explosion of technology. If you look at 1902, there's a big, massive explosion of technology. He says the next one would be 2040. Then he also talks about this Nemesis X event that's something parallel with it. It's some really, really interesting theories. But he's putting the next Phoenix phenomenon event taking place, like I said, 2040, and looks at them as kind of like resets. But it's also a way for people that are familiar with these phenomenons to keep track of things as far as time, because a lot of things are being manipulated by the elites who apparently know a lot of this information. So it's and again, because it's not like anything that I can truly factually back up, I find it to be more entertaining. But I find that when I say something is entertaining, I don't mean that it doesn't have any value.
Oh, no, I get it. Yeah.
It's just
Jason
like that's
Brashear is fascinating. I've watched a couple of his videos.
okay. So you're familiar.
Yeah.
He can just blow your mind.
Yeah.
He's a cool dude. Very interesting. Good theories. Okay. Well, cool, man. Was there anything else that you wanted to add, or are you good?
All good, brother. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, likewise. And I will keep you up to date about March 31st and whether or not I can or can't make it to Hawaii. And I'll obviously keep up with Ethan because he's the one who's really pushing for it, which I appreciate. So if you can bear with me 1 second. Go ahead. Sorry.
I said Ethan Lucas.
Ethan Lucas is good people. He calls himself the anti-preacher.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's hilarious. I mean, I've known him now for a couple of years, and I'm glad that our paths crossed. I don't always agree with everything he says, and I think that, obviously I don't think he would say the same, but I think that's what makes our conversations interesting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be a circle jerk.
Yeah. Boring.
Nobody gets anything valuable from a circle jerk.
No.
So if you can, somebody might, I don't know, somebody might comment on this video and talk about how much value they found in their latest circle jerk.
Yeah.
If you did, let us know.
Yes.
If you could bear with me real quick, I'm just going to do the wrap up. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for tuning in. If you got all the way through and you still haven't watched the first conversation that I did with Lewis, be sure to check that out because it will be linked down below, as well as everything we talked about on today's show. And he definitely will be back. Before we wrap things up, I will encourage you to make sure you're subscribed to both of my YouTube channels here, Rice Against the Grain, and also Rice TVX. And I will leave you with this. I encourage you to be a blessing to others. Treat people how you want to be treated. Be the glitch you want to see in the matrix, and be the change that you want to see in the world. And until next time, practice change.